Hey, Roger Brown here, and I want to talk to you today about a book that I recently read called Deep Work, D-E-E-P, Work, by Cal Newport. Cal is a professor at MIT, super smart guy, and you may have seen his TED Talk. I would encourage you to look at it if you have not. But his point is that everything in this universe that has happened that's big, whether it be Einstein's theory of relativity, Steve Jobs creating the iPhone, you name it, has come as a result of what he calls deep work. And what he means by that is a sustained period of time in which an individual concentrates on a given task to the exclusion of everything else, which, as we all know, is happening less and less, and we're becoming trained not to do that by the internet because it's a very distractive media and things are just coming in from all sides, top, bottom, left, and right to try to take us off our game. But we all know intuitively that Cal is right, that we need to focus for sustained periods of time to be able to produce anything worthwhile. So the task becomes, how do you do that? Well, first of all, you recognize that as something that's valuable, and you think about it enough that you realize, that I realize, that if we're going to produce anything really worthwhile, it's going to be as a result of training that deep work muscle, that it's going to be as a result of learning how to focus for longer periods of time. If we don't do that, what we tend to do as human beings, we tend to what he calls looping, which is we only work on the things that we're already good at. It's like going to the golf course. You go to the golf course, and if you're like me, you're drawn to the driving range because it's easy. It's easy to pick up on. It's way harder than the rest of the game. Like chipping and putting and all the rest of it. It's just way easier, makes us feel better about ourselves. So we tend to do that which is easy over and over again, and we never get out of that mode, patting ourselves on the back for hitting that ball off the tee at the driving range and never challenging ourselves to really do any better. And we can get away with that as adults because nobody's looking over our shoulder. There's nobody that's going to challenge us on that, like when we were in school. When we were in school, we had people telling us, this is not good enough. You need to work harder. You need to spend more time invested in these topics if you're going to really get good at them. But we all know this intuitively, and then the question becomes, how do you actually do this? What does it look like when you're doing deep work? Cal suggests that deep work is defined by 90 minutes of sustained activity at one time. That's pretty hard to do if you're like me and like a lot of people who are used to being distracted by the internet and taken away every couple of minutes. I think it's a skill or a habit that has to be built up through repetition. I think we have to challenge ourselves. We have to, first of all, believe that this is something and have confidence this is something that's going to pay off, that if we spend time with the details over a long period of time on one thing, we are going to produce better results, and then we start with where we are. If that's a couple of minutes, if that's 5 minutes, then that's what we start with. 5 minutes before we start drifting off and getting interested in something else. And then we challenge ourselves over time, maybe adding a minute every day. But I think this is something that we've got to do if we're going to produce big things in life and not just be stuck in the rut of doing the same thing, the same mediocre thing over and over and over again, feeling good about it because we've got nobody challenging us. We've got to challenge ourselves to replicate the success patterns of people that have produced very big things. I'm completely convinced he's right, and I challenge myself to focus for longer and longer periods of time. It's not easy to do. because our world doesn't support it. But think about that and see where you are on the spectrum, and try to add a little bit of time to whatever you're spending time with that's important to achieving your goals. Try to spend a little bit of extra time. Challenge yourself, because there's nobody on the outside that's going to challenge you really. Challenge yourself to add a little bit more. Challenge yourself to block out the distractions, as Cal talks about. Don't put yourself in a position where you're easily distracted. If you can go internetless, if you can turn off your phone or at least silence it, keep the notifications from coming in for just a little bit, and train that muscle. That's where all the good things and all the results are coming from all over the world. Let's challenge ourselves to put ourselves in that mode and see what happens. See ya.